Thank you very, very much for coming. Just a little background. I have all my life been actually probably more comfortable being friends with trees and rocks than a lot of humans. So when the nature spirits asked me if I would enter into a contract with them, I agreed. And my contract is to take photographs of nature spirits and show them to people so they know it's not pareidolia, it's not imagination, that these are real, mature life forms that if we humans learn to cooperate with them, we'll certainly have a much better civilization. So that's the basis and premise on which my work occurs. So we're first going to cover some basics about this process. Then we're going to look at trees, and then we're going to look at rocks. After that, there'll be a question and answer period for you folks, all right? This is the lecture on Saturday. Those of you who can make it, I strongly encourage you to come. This is wonderful, and I show you photos, but on Saturday, you're going to learn to see yourself and to take photographs. One thing about energy work is that it's communicated person to person through frequency. So if you are coming out with me and you're walking around the magnificent Theosophical Grounds with their incredible nature spirits, you resonate with my frequency. That enables you to see the photographs, and once you, as they say, once you know how to get to Rome, you can get to Rome again on your own. So that's my goal. Now up here, this is up in my summer home, my other home up in New Hampshire. This is Franconia Notch, and this is a wonderful spider woman with her children on her back and a rather sinister or gray spirit watching me take this photograph. And here you see the eye, the nose, and the mouth. All right. I have written 2 books, a number of books, but 2 pertain to nature spirits. One, I'm very blessed to have been featured by Quest Books, who published Nature Spirits, Spirit Guides, and Ghosts. And this one over here is one I self-published because it contains my photographs. I have thousands of photographs. I have thousands of friends in the nature spirit world, so a few of them I put together so you folks could see. Now, one thing I want understood is that we are talking about beings in other realms who are not the cutesy little fairies in the yard. These are mature beings, mature civilizations, some of them much, much older than we are, we humans. And, but nature spirits exist in a different dimension where they don't have the strong vital that humans have. So they're actually more benign, and they've been around for a couple million years or a couple hundred. So they can adapt around humans. One time I was looking up in Washington State at this beautiful Indian fashioned out of rock, and down below there was all this highway, and I said to him, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful." And he was very grumpy, and he said, "We will be around long after you humans are gone." So they have a different sense of time than we have. Here are the 2 of the highly intelligent life forms of the nature realm. I'm going to be taking you through the different ways in trees and rocks. There are the spirit of the tree and rock. There is a deva who's making use of the tree or rock for energetic purposes. There are nodal trees, and there are unexplained, to some people, ET intergalactic forces at work on these. Here we have a wonderful wood elf princess up in New Hampshire. And if you notice, it's kind of like 101 Dalmatians. She has this lovely little swirl of hair going up. Here's her ear, her eye, her nose, and her mouth. This one I cut out. She was in a tree. I cut out her image so that you could see her more clearly. Over here is a lady of the Chiricahua. When I go down to the Arizona Tucson Gem Show, I always go up and visit the hoodoos. If hoodoos are have different explanations for them, but when the Native Americans saw them, they revered them. When the pioneers saw them, they looked like voodoo from New Orleans, so they just changed it around and called them hoodoo. A lot of these beings these rocks have been around for millions of years. And if you were in one place for 1 million years and you were a conscious life form, pretty soon you start saying, all right, let's do something, and you start developing the ability to express your personality in the platform that you have, and that's the rock. So this is right at the entryway to a long valley of hoodoos, and this lovely princess with her eye, her nose, her mouth, her cheek overlooks that area. Now, my personal favorite, oops, they're telling me don't say that. I like all of you. I love gnomes, and I love trolls, and I love green men. Green men are the philosopher warriors of the nature realm, and they have taught me an awful lot. If you want to do this kind of work, what you want to do is go out into nature, stand quietly, salute with respect the nature beings, and then ask to enter into communication with any of these life forms. For myself, a contract was developed, and it's a benign contract. It's like, I'll help you and you help me. So that's also something that you folks can enter into. I'm sure those of you who do spiritual work are aware of that when you're working with your guides. So here's a green man in Ryerson Preserve, and here's one out in Geneva. Now, the thing about green men is when you see the Celtic green men plaques and you see how the leaves come out from around their face, well, that's actually their facial armor. And when they're in repose, here you can see, this is their facial armor going back, and here it is going back. When they are in warrior mode, the facial armor comes forward. And that's what you see in the Celtic plaques. It's showing them when they're bringing it forward, almost like a peacock on display, or to do battle, whichever it is. Now, they are the ones who will very often communicate with humans. They're very tall, they're a lot like John. They remind me of you. And they're very philosophical and very peaceful and benign, but don't cross them. So if you cross them, you learn they're very strong as well. Now, those of you who are, I'm going to ask all of you here to take a leap with me and allow yourself to imagine that this is a huge universe, that we all are meant to be together. As we move into this new age, we will learn to start communicating with each other. We don't do it now. And the only reason that we see each other here is that we have agreed that we're going to focus on this frequency that's human at our level. If you decided that you wanted to shift your frequency, consciousness, vibration, resonance, however you term it, if you wanted to just shift then you enter into another dimension and you would see different people, different things, different beings. So this is what I do. I just shift frequency and enter into another world. Now, our Earth looks like it's solid, but it's actually made up of multiple layers of energy called ley lines or grids that overlap each other. And each of these grids carries and secures a different energy for Earth. Where the grids cross, just like in the human energy field, that is a potential for a spiral to come that can become a vortex or a portal or a gateway. So here there is an intergalactic civilization, the Mayans, that supported the Mayan civilization in South America, and that I have an affinity for. So as I wander around different places, I will come upon a place where the Mayan grid that goes all around the Earth, just like the Theosophical grid does, and the Christian grid does, and the Buddhist grid does. The Mayan grid goes around at a particular frequency, and some places where it crosses, it puts an anchor or a placeholder there. And these are some photos I took of placeholders. So down here is the Temple of the Warriors in Chichen Itza, which is one of the core areas for the Mayans, the Mayan grid. And here you see a shock mule. How many of you have been down to Chichen? All right. So you know the Temple of the Warriors and the chalk mule at the top, absolutely spectacular. Unfortunately, the Mayans down there got it a little wrong when the philosophers, people who inspire them, say, offer God your heart. They meant spiritual heart, and it got misinterpreted down to physical heart. So we humans are still learning, a lot. So at that point, but here's where the sacrifices and the different energies took place. Now up here, this is Castle Rock. I'm sure a lot of you, when you're going up 9094 and you're going to Minneapolis, you pass by Castle Rock. Well, Castle Rock, if you look at it differently, Castle Rock is actually a shock mule. Here is the shock mule. Here's the offering in the shock mule's base. And watching the shock mule's back is a figure with the hat, a hat. Something like this. Evidently, I've tried to place it historically with photos. I haven't found it. But evidently, at some point back there were beings that had a hat. We've seen them in ancient China. I'm not sure if there's a crossover. And then last fall, I was up at Acadia, and in Monument Cove, there was another Mayan grid point. And you can see here, there's a face. This is the monument of Monument Cove. But if you start looking closely, you'll see here is the figure with the hat. And here is the sacrificial form that would be offered on the altar. So you can see here it is here, and here it is there. And that's there for anybody to see if you look. But you can go and you can look at that as a beautiful monument, or if you want to see deeper or you're resonating with it, something's telling you to look, just shift your eyes and see what else is available. Now, the evidence of ancient cultures who still affect our Earth with these different grids are all around us. And while conventional archaeology tries to place things within like 4,000 years, 7,000 years, alternative archaeology that's becoming more prominent is recognizing that there is evidence that's been suppressed that takes our cultures back millions of years. And many cycles of cultures that have disappeared and new ones come in. Here, I'm certain these are the three pyramids of Giza. that form the stars in Orion's belt. And you will find those in many of the civilizations around the world, the Mexican and different places. And these are one interpretation that I resonate with, is that these are representing the portals in Orion's belt. And those who do intergalactic work know that the different stars take you into different aspects of intergalactic civilization, like the Pleiades or Sirius that you go through. So these are like connection points. And here's the Chichen Itza pyramid. And then over here, all of the archaeologists who attempt to find our connection to Atlantis. Off Bimini is one of the roads that they say, some people say, is part of Atlantis. And that's being discovered and uncovered, and they're finding that it's shaped enough that it can't just be pretend or an imagination. Another way, besides the ancient civilizations, we also have other unexplained phenomena, which are the crop circles that appear. Some are man-made, many are not man-made. And they often see an orb will manifest there, and then it's completed in 10 minutes. And this indicates as well the extreme sophistication of other life forms that coexist with us here on Earth, that we have not yet recognized, that we will eventually come into contact with. Over here is one I took, a real orb. There are raindrops, there are sand specks. A real orb, when you look into it, it has an internal construction because it's a vehicle. It's like if someone from the Pleiades came here and they looked at you, they might not be able to get your frequency, but they might see your aura. So an orb is like an aura that contains something. And when you shift, or if they come into your area, you will see either sacred geometry in there, which is a Merkaba, which is what we all look like above the physical, or you will see an actual form. So this is in a local park, and I was taking a picture of the root structure, and this orb came by. Now this is near a children's playground, and just before I snapped the picture, the orb spoke to me and said, "I would be much prettier if those little boys wouldn't pee on me." So I went, okay. So here you see some of it. There's a figure in meditation here, and here you see chakra colors going out. So that's what you're looking like when you're taking photos. We have a monthly contest on my website, crystallife.com, where you can send pictures you've taken of nature spirits or orbs or things, and I will explain to you if it is a phenomena or not. And we also give out a prize once a month on the best photo that's sent to us. So I'm going to go into the world of trees first. And living out here in this beautiful Fox River Valley area, it's filled with the most spectacular trees. And historically, the Native Americans here, the Ojibwe, have been kind people, and the nature spirits are very benign and interested in helping. And throughout, anywhere that you see these beings, strike up a conversation with them and see what you can do to help. And the best way to get to communicate with one of these trees is if you go out and they need some help. Like we humans are the physical hands for the tree spirits and the rocks who can't move. So if they ask, if you feel that they're asking, please clear this, a tree fell here and it's blocking our energy. If you help and you move it, then they will very often, they will thank you for it. They're obligated to thank you. And then first time I did that, and they said, well, what can we do in return as a gift? And my team said, ask them to tell you more about themselves. So that's what I asked for as a gift, and I sat and they explained who they were for quite a while. But that's the origin of the leprechaun with the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You know, it's like people ask for gold and then they chase it eternally. It just doesn't happen. So here, this is a wonderful mesquite tree in Arizona near Signal Hill. Anybody know that? It's outside Tucson, and we have petroglyphs there. Old from the Hohokam people. It's thousands of years old. And on the trail going up, there's this tree called for me to come and see it. And when I was there, I noticed that somebody else imperceptibly had put a little tiny circle of stones around the tree with a path. So there are other people who also see this and recognize it. And so I did a study of it. And here you see these animals in the mesquite tree. And then underneath it, you see a spirit, the eye, the nose. And down here is another being with horns and the face. So this is a more complicated, once a tree is mature enough and learns how to create an image in itself, or the Davis decide to use it, then make sure you always walk around the tree and see what is there above and below, because they're going to manifest a lot of different energies. So Earth is a living grid. And this is what the grid looks like. This is the famous Alex Gray. And he has depicted the human energy field with all of our grids internal to us. And what it looks like if you move out of the physical and you move up into the light fields, then you can start seeing these grids radiating out at different levels with different points coming down and connecting. So this is a very clear depiction. If you're interested in that, he has a wonderful website and lots of photos of drawings and paintings like this. So we have grids. Now, a lot of the grids are not healthy, or they're being affected by items around them, or they are very strong vortexes of energy. And in the old days, when you would build a house, you'd have maybe a medicine man or an elder or a priest come, bless the land, and tell you where it'd be good to put it. Nowadays, they just wipe everything out. They put houses down, and then that becomes wonderful for people like me and other dowsers, because then for some reason, you put your bedroom over a vortex and you're wondering why you don't feel well. Your health is bad. So you have to call a dowser in to shift the energy. So what a dowser does is we'll come in. If you can't, it's always best to move the energy. If you can't move it, then we create different kinds of energetic structures. One of the reasons why I got into stones. Stones are very good for holding energy and directing energy. So here, this is a place where if you look here, this is a line of energy that's going around, that's being affected so strong that the trees are actually growing. So that would not be a good place to put a house and have your seat that you want to look at TV at, because it's going to mess up with your energy. Over here in Geneva, this is their graveyard, and you can see this tree was growing in a very strong vortex, and it's actually, when it grew, it was growing in a spiral because it kept growing like this. A better example of that even are mesquite trees in Sedona. I'm sure, how many here have been to Sedona? All right, so you know Sedona is famous for all its vortexes. And this is on Bell Rock, my favorite vortex. And here's a mesquite tree that has just grown straight up, nice clear energy from all of the rocks around it. But here's the same species that's growing in a vortex, and look how that's spinning the energy around. So again, you know, you don't want to be sleeping in that at night or position your house there, because you're trying to balance yourself and the vortex is taking you like this. So that's something that you all can be looking at when you're assessing your house and why you feel good in one place and not good in another. Now, in this alternate reality where we work with the trees and the rocks for the benefit of all, energy workers know that lightning-struck trees are trees of transformation. They are very powerful. If you find a lightning-struck tree and there's some of the bark or wood that's splintered off on the ground, take a piece of it home with you, because that is going to, when you are stuck in some problem, if you hold that and resonate with that energy, you can shift your own energy to try something new. That's the result of lightning striking it and causing an energetic shift. So here's a local park up in St. Charles, and it has 2 lightning-struck trees. And if you're just an ordinary person out for a walk, a lot of people like this place. It's a lot of picnics because the energy is so good. But those of us who do energy work, we'll go there and we can use that in between these trees. There's a frequency. It creates like you know, like when you're doing Tai Chi and you put your palms together and you can move them back and forth. Well, that's what's being created here. So if you walk through that field, you instantly, it opens up new opportunities, new ways of thinking for you. So we call it the transformation tree, and we'll often take people, when I take people on a walk in St. Charles through here, they like it. Now there's something interesting here. Whenever you have, this is also a portal, a light, you see how this is? Whenever you see something like this in a tree, look at the top or somewhere around it, and very often the guardian of that, every portal has a guardian, because portals are very powerful and they don't, nature doesn't want you just walking into a portal and disappearing. They protect it, and you have to know the password, you know, to get in. So in this case, the guardian is right here. So that's kind of a snake-like face. And over on this side, there's a face here, and there's another face here. That's a fun thing to do as you're out on a walk, and when you see one of these places, just look more carefully, and if you don't see it, just kind of say, okay, I'm going to just shift. You know, it's kind of like when you're out in the morning and you're going to play some football, and then at night you're going to go out with your friends and go to a classical concert. Well, the energy that you have when you're playing football is not the same energy that you have when you sit down to enjoy classical concert. And that's the same way it is with nature spirits. All you do is say, all right, this is the different frequencies these people are in. Let me just shift it around. There are crucial nodal points on the Earth grid and the animals that are not part of this discussion, the totems, they have a certain energy. They preceded us, and they offer an energy for humans to use. And their nodal points appear around the world, even if There are elephants elephants I've photographed. Here are some of the most common. Here is an ape in Central Park, a great ape. And I call this Planet of the Apes because down here is this very stupid looking human. All right, and a very intelligent ape, and then another nature spirit here and a nature spirit there. So that ape, there's a nodal point here, there'll be different places around the world that are holding that frequency for us to use. I myself am very fond of bear spirit, so I will often see bear. Now when I take people out for a walk, I might see a bear, and in the same tree over here, somebody who has a connection to wolf will say, oh, look, there's a wolf there. Now, I might not see that because I wasn't resonating with that, but the other person was. So the trees have been around 200 years. They have multiple opportunities to create images and energies. They're collecting energies. But this one is a bear in winter. And then over here is a wonderful lion. I call him Aslan. And he's off the Washington State in right by the ocean. Now, trees also have a sense of responsibility. And very often they take the energy that they see around them and they either personify it, embody it, or try to correct it. This is an area in a local preserve, and this path I never liked to go on for some reason. But one time, that means I should go on it, right? We all know that from energy. So one time I went there and the nature spirits asked me to go there, go up that path, and first I was to meditate, ask for protection, and then go up. Now I can just come up and go. It's like a friend there. But at that time, it was a new energy. And this is helping abused women, holding this energy. So here is the whole figure on the tree. Up here is, this woman is like a dog on a leash. And so you see a face, kind of a dog-like face with her eye, her mouth, her ear, and then a leash going up. And then it comes down into her breasts. And then down here is the male who is dominating her vital, her emotions. And then down there is his male part. So this whole thing is showing how women, or this type of woman, was being dominated by male, and the tree was trying to hold that energy and correct it. The trees and the rocks, in a case like this, they're trying to take the energy and say, all right, let's bring this into balance. So this is what it's working to do. On the other side of this tree, there's this large burl, and it's a beast with an eye, and there's a teardrop right here. So that's that bestial energy, but it's not making anybody happy and crying. And here's a close-up of the face, of the breasts, and the head, and here's the head here that you can see. So different tree species manifest in different ways. The redwoods and the oaks, especially the wonderful bur oaks that we have in this part of the country, their burls can tell stories. Now, scientifically, people say, well, we don't know how the burl's made. Maybe there was an insect bite, whatever happened, something was ill. They're not allowing for the fact that the tree decided it wanted to embody a certain energy. So I have a son who's an Air Force pilot and who can see, but of course he can't see, right? So when I go out for a walk with him, he always says, hey, Mom, I don't believe in this, but if you look over there, you're going to see a tree with a face on it. So I go like, all right, whatever. So he found this when we were out in the redwood forest. And here's a wonderful bear. a wonderful nature spirit with a happy grin, and a kind of a seafaring guy with a bandana. If you turn around, you can see him there. Now, pines, the white pines, they have a different method. They do an incised form into their bark. And I have some photos I'll show you later on. It almost looks like somebody took a finger through butter and just incised it going down. So for nature spirits, these forms are malleable. We have to cut it down and carve it. But nature spirits and devas, they work with the living energy and they can adjust it, just like the orbs for the crop circles. So here's a wonderful gnome. That's the gnome that I share my summer house with. And beech trees have smooth protrusions. I call this the whisper. It's the king with his mouth, his eye, and his crown, and one of the courtiers whispering in the ear. And then here in the Midwest, we have very thick clay soil. So we have a lot of roots that come up, and those roots are made use of. Here's a wonderful one with an open mouth and eyes. And cottonwood trees, the Native Americans know, are called messenger trees. They have heart-shaped leaves, and they move in the wind. And it said they take messages from humans to spirit. And here's one local park, and around its base, it's called a nodal tree. It's the alpha tree of that park. And I took its various roots and I lined them up to show how it's a life form. So here's the eyes, the heart, and the pelvic area. And nice little arms going out. There are trees that guard and protect an area. Usually, there's such beautiful, comforting energy. The grandmother and the grandfather trees. This is out in the Pacific Northwest, a beautiful tree with the moss growing. And it's in the woods facing a parking lot, so everybody that comes in to get to the lake is greeted by this grandmother. What's very interesting is I've seen this a couple times. All of this is moss covered, but there is a line, it's almost like a cord. You know, we talk about energetic cords going from the grandmother's heart, and it's reaching out, and it goes up, and it's reaching out like almost wanting to cord the humans who come in with its love. So that's a common thing that I find. Then there are portal trees. Now this, the highest, one of the highest energies in an area is the Lady of the Forest. And the Lady of the Forest is in charge of the birthing and the death, the comings and the goings of all the nature beings in her area, the animals, the trees, the plants, the flowers. And this is in a local preserve. And here it is up close, and that's what it looks like, full form. So I overlapped close with the form. So in this case, you can see she has a heart-shaped tree. Heart-shaped face. Now she has one eye present and one eye not. The Native Americans call that a spirit tree, because that means she has one eye that is talking to humans and one eye that's in spirit, and that indicates that she can move back and forth between humans and spirit. Here she has a wonderful cowl, and she's birthing forth a baby bird. Here's the mouth, the eye, the wing, and that. So That is a portal that one could use to enter into her realm, but it indicates that this is where she's positioned in that particular preserve, observing everything around her. There's something called a council tree. Now, a council tree, it's like our Supreme Court or our court of law. This is an old tree. It's usually well established, and usually around its base, if it's in the forest, you're going to see it's just dirt around it from nature spirits gathering around there. And this is where the nature spirits come to have arbitration on any issues that they have with each other. So, and I know this might sound unbelievable to some people, but that's really the way it is. And I've seen them in a number of different places, and they're very specific and about what they do, and they all tell me the same thing. So here, in this case, this magnificent tree is in the yard of one of the founding families of Conway, New Hampshire, where I go in the summer. And if you can see here, here's the elf prince. He's the head of the council, his eye, his ear, his mouth, perky little hat there, his thing. Then we have a merchant elf that takes care of the merchant level. And that's here. I cut it out so you could see him better. Love Photoshop. Here, now this is an elderly green man, and if you notice how flaccid his facial armor is, you can see that here, and his eyes. And then we have other beings. We have an Indian, we have a monkey. They're all around this tree. So the nature spirits come and they offer their issue with each other, and the decision is made there and handed down, and just like our courts, people have to abide by it. Now, there are also marker trees that determine a person's turf. So in my summer home, my family's summer home, which is in the virgin forest up in northern New Hampshire, I share my particular cottage with a gnome. When I come in the summer, I tell him, you're out in the garage. When I leave, you can come back in. And we have our understanding about that. And every once in a while, he'll take me out with him to photograph something new in nature that I haven't seen. You know, it's like a treat. But he has marked the trees to show other people that this is his territory. So in one tree in the back, as I showed you, here's the elf, here's the gnome with his hat, his eyes, his nose, and his beard. And then on the side of the cottage, here's another tree, and that's him side view with his hat going up, his nose, his mouth, his ear, and his hair coming down like this. Now, I hope you can see this. This is what that line looks like up close. And if you see, it's like it was dealing with butter. It's just like somebody took and went like that. So this is bark and tree, but in the nature spirit world, very pliable. And trees also record what's going on around them. This tree is actually on the Theosophical Grounds facing the Mary Grove. And if you see, there's Mary with her cowl and the baby. Out in the middle of the woods where the trees don't see people, then they are interested more in the animals, and they'll often depict animals. So this tree obviously saw all the geese going by overhead and thought that, you know, how wonderful, all these people moving so fast, and created that image to resonate with them. Now we come to the rock world. Now, trees live 200, maybe a few elderly, even 1,000 years, but rocks, millions of years old. Rocks are the underlying energy for everything else that on Earth. And they are used by interdimensional beings to hold energy. They are used as artistic palettes for beings, like the crop circles, and they have their own life that they represent and want to display. So I'm going to show you some of these. This is Mount Lemmon, that's near Tucson, and this is an old prospector hoodoo, I call it. Now, this is in Bryce Canyon in Utah. This is the very famous Queen Victoria. However, I look at it and I say, I don't know, that looks like Queen of the Dragons to me. Could be in, one of these Netflix shows, HBO shows. So a dragon looking up rather benignly. Rocks, like trees, hold energy that they want to help, to manifest, or to correct. Estes Park, folks know Estes Park? Okay, wonderful, wonderful place, absolutely. People love it. Why do people love these energies? Well, these places, they have all this energy coming from very aware, mature life forms that we can move into, and we feel secure, we feel protected, we feel this benign energy around. So up in Estes Park, this is one of my favorites. That's grandfather. He's about 15 feet tall, and he overlooks a whole hillside strewn with his family. There's a grandmother, there are grandkids, there's a grumpy old guy, there's, a handsome, all these rocks that are there. And at one point in my life, I was going through some difficulty, and he was so kind to me. He's just big enough for me to sit there, and he took me into the inner world to be with his stone family. And there's nothing like a bunch of stones who've been around a couple million years to make you feel secure. So that was very nice. Also in Estes Park is this happy little dog rock that's in a local hotel with his hat, his eye, and his nose and mouth. So rocks inherently, I have a rock shop. They just, I just wanted one rock, right? And I ended up with a whole shop. The nice thing is that all rocks can go through my hands, and I can afford to play with the rocks for a while, and then they pass on. So, but they inherently have different qualities due to their molecular makeup and the minerals in them. And have you ever stopped to wonder why? Quartz are made out of marble, okay? And why, if you're looking for love, you go for rose quartz? It's because of the frequency. That frequency resonates with our frequency, and it can help hold us. So if we're having trouble, if we need more love and compassion in our life, if you hold rose quartz or wear rose quartz, what you're doing is you're resonating with that frequency and bringing it into yourself. Eventually, what you do is you absorb that frequency in, and then you don't need that stone anymore because you own that frequency. And that's one of the things the stones have done all around the world, is hold that for the humans to resonate with. So here's Olmsted Point in Yosemite National Park. And this is where, this is a favorite rumination point for Frederick Law Olmsted as he worked on the formation of the U.S. National Park System. In fact, this is where he took President Roosevelt up to have on a tour, to have lunch there to persuade him to establish the National Park System. And if you notice here, we have this wonderful figure. And then if you sit there and you look, you start seeing other things like, oh, okay, that looks like an eagle. It could be an eagle eye coming down. There's another like a cohort there, and it figures around. You can sit there and see that, and I often wonder, all these people who come by and they look there and they look, okay, it's pretty, and they go on, and nobody ever says hi to these folks. Now, what is known, just like the Old Man of the Mountain up in New Hampshire, in Chiricahua, Arizona, they call this Cochise, the head of Cochise, and it's said by locals to resemble the profile of the great local Apache chief. That was Apache territory. Now, now we're getting into some of the more complex ones that no way is this pareidolia or is this chance. This is in Garden of the Gods in Colorado. And the nature spirits stopped me and had me look at this and explain to me what's happening there. Here's an Indian, and he is being backed by an ant being. And here's an animal here, and here are a couple of beings watching them. So this is a huge, very hundreds of foot tall memorial to the partnership of the ant people and humans at that time, at the change of the ages and the great floods, when around the world, different of the inner earth beings took people in, humans in, to protect the species. And in this area, the Native Americans speak often about the ant people protecting them and taking them in. And in some of their petroglyphs, you'll actually see kind of that shape for the ant people, for the face. Now, in the summer, the Utes come there, and they have a gathering, and then they will come around and they will honor this Indian. And up here, there's a line, and when it rains, water comes down here and creates a tear. So it expresses the sadness of the Indian situation and also of the Great Flood. And then we're going to end on this. This is a love story in stone. This is so far the most complex story I've seen. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you the parts, and then we're going to come back to it. This is in Garden of the Gods in Illinois. The last one was Garden of the Gods, Colorado. Garden of the Gods, Illinois is in the Shawnee National Park in southern Illinois. And this is leasing rock, and that's formed from iron oxides and sandstone. And where the iron come, it creates patterns. But if you start looking at it, there's a story here, and I'm going to tell you the story, and then we're going to do it as this area. There's something called a guardian of place. And a guardian of place is the one who's responsible for the well-being of an area. So this guardian of place created a mural that showed respect for an old love of his who was, they were in love when they were young, but he left to pursue spiritual pursuits. She stayed true to him, and even through old age. So now I'm going to show you the parts, all right? So it's, in fact, I'll show you very quickly here. Here's the head. This is the cobra head that you see around Vishnu, representing his leaving for spiritual life, his hair, his hat. Here's the maiden. It's a Picasso type design where you see the maiden right here. And then you look at it differently and you see the old crone with the hag with a tooth. She's bending over like this. Her cat's here. Here's her arm, and that's the dream that goes up into his back end, his legs, and his shoulder, remembering that. Now here it is, I drafted it out for you guys. So you see head, boy's face. You see the balloon coming from her, going up to that, dreaming about it. The hair, the cobra. Female face, hag face. Bending over, cat face, coming up, the back of the legs, the rear, and the arms. Now, this mural looks out over the scene. And over here is the guardian of place grown up, matured, and instead he's now wearing a crown, and instead of the cobra he has a tree there representing his oneness with trees. You can see his ear, both sides, his face, his nose, and his eyes. So it's showing him looking back on his life. So here we are. Here's him young. Here's him old. Here's the maid. And here's the hag. No way is that by chance. So it's like these nature spirits and beings who have all this capacity, that who could be working with us if we just chose to cooperate. So here we are, here's the mural, and as they say, here's to love, and that's always where everything ends.
We're talking about like the celestial, like the spirits of the cosmos, so to speak. I forget how you exactly referred to it. Has anyone ever taken this kind of photography or this idea and extrapolated it to like other planets and pictures that they have of rock formations on other planets? I think that would be a fascinating thing to consider.
Actually, yes. The beings, this is universal. There's one source. That one source has manifested in an infinite number of ways, and all we have to do is identify with the frequency of how source evolved there, and we're instantly in communication with that place. And that's how interdimensional communicators work. There is no time-space. We can be anywhere. As to, I'm sure you may have seen pictures of the moon with the faces on the moon. You may have seen pictures that NASA's taken of the cosmos with, the eye of God. Very often my social media person loves to send me images from the National Park Society, where people take pictures of nature, and there's images there. So this is everywhere. Everybody wants to create. Everybody wants to express themselves, and it's a very common experience. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Atala, can I just ask, when you say that the spirits or the beings communicate with you, how do you experience that?
It's a knowing, and what happens is it could be through physical words, but usually what happens is everything in nature is formed of Merkabahs. That's a full body of information. So you can go from a tiny Merkabah that's in a cell into a large Merkabah that contains the human body. And what happens interdimensionally, as I experience it, is that when I was writing my books, my team would take a whole body of information and they'd give it to me. And then it was my job to extrapolate it and make it linear, to put it down on paper so that other people could understand it. So when I go in and I want to talk to a tree, I come into resonance with it. We come in through the heart and we become one. And in that state of oneness, it's a consciousness communication that occurs where we each understand what the other's doing and we don't need words.
And I have a question from someone who's written in. Could you please say more on what you meant when you said there is a portal guardian in lightning-struck trees and you must know the password? How do you know the portal password?
Oh, well, I was just kind of teasing when I said the password. It's the frequency. What happens is there are portals all over Earth, and lots of times when people disappear, they may have unwittingly walked into a portal and not known how to get back. So a portal can actually occur anywhere there's a crossing of lines, of energy lines, and if it's open and it's not a protected vortex of energy. So in a known portal area that's being controlled, nature is very hierarchical. It has all of its, just like we have, that everybody has their own job. If there's a portal, a gateway that goes into another dimension to protect people and nature spirits, there's a guardian. That's that person's job, is to be, that life form's being, is to guard that portal. If you have no reason to go into that portal or you don't resonate with it, you don't even know it's there, or you just see and it looks like a scar in a tree. But if you need to get from this dimension to the wood elves or the moss fairies, whatever, you can go in, and that becomes a consciousness conduit that takes you to specific realms of energy. But when I said you need to know the password, you need to know the energy and you need to have a reason. That's why I say the best way to get to know these beings is equal to equal. If they have something that they need done, if you offer to help them, they express gratitude, and that's how you start your communication.
I have more of a comment than a question, but a few years ago I was out on my back porch reading a book about angels, and from the east, an orb, I didn't know what it was, but it was this reddish, orangish, perfectly shaped circle, came floating by silent, and I was, staring at it like, what the hell is this? What the heck is this, And so I yelled to my mother, and my sister and my daughter happened to be in the house too, and we all just stared at this thing trying to figure out what it was. And so I'm fortunate enough to validate that it's absolutely true. I mean, a skeptic, right?
Right.
Absolutely true.
We're all skeptics until we have the experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and orbs particularly like happy energy, and often when people send me photos, if it's in a meditation or there's a guru there, or there's a spiritual teacher, or it's a wedding, we get these huge white orbs with a lot of internal sacred geometry. And the color often reflects the energy of the being, so that would be a more grounded energy in like the chakras that was coming to you to maybe help you or give you information. So that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
One more question. How are nature spirits affected by destructive events such as hurricanes, fires, and earthquakes?
Okay. So when I started doing this work, very often the life forms that are going to connect with a human are the more mature life forms, because they've been around long, they've developed their consciousness just like human beings, and they're more able to adapt. I have my favorites that I always go back and look, and one time I went back in the summer up in my family place, and this tree had blown down in a hurricane. I was just heartbroken. I went like, oh no. And the nature spirit said, don't be sad, don't be sad. That tree's been around for 200 years. It's time for it to have another experience. So it's just like us. When we're born, we leave, and if you believe in reincarnation, which I do, you come back again and you have another chance. It's the same with trees. They're a spirit that's evolving, and when that happens, they go on. The part that I'm not so fond of is when real estate developers come in and they wipe and level a property and they put up a housing development. And when you go there, it sounds dead. There's no life there at all. So I always encourage people, if you see that they're going to be doing something like that in your neighborhood, please go in before and alert the nature spirit so that the deva of that area, so that they can move a lot of the beings somewhere else. You can do that with many. Some are plant and tree specific, but some are on the land and they can be moved, and then they can relocate once the exercise is gone. So,
You mentioned interdimensional workers. If you are familiar with axiotonal alignment, can you say how one can become more aligned through attuning with the frequencies of the nature spirits?
I don't know axiotonal alignment. Honestly, to let your people know, I started my work in New York City, and there was nobody, years and years ago, even in New York City, there was no one who knew this. I was taught internally. That took me a while to get used to and to believe, and by Thoth, and by who we call the 3 M's, Michael, Melchizedek, and Metatron. And it was in the mid-1990s, and as I was on the lecture circuit, I met a lot of people who were also at that time being taught by the 3 M's. They have a very good sense of humor, and we could trade jokes that they told us, and they would know. But I believed them, and if you have contact with any nature beings, first you have to establish, or spirit guides, establish that they're real. And they were very clear to me that I was to test them. Each spirit guide has a different range of capacities. And I couldn't ask one to do something that wasn't their realm of knowledge. That would be another person's area. For instance, I worked with Thoth for months, then I worked with Michael, and when you're just starting out on this, it's like, no, don't let go of my hand. You know, you're taking me into this world, and I don't know all these things that are going on. And it was like pry out, you know, and then it went to Michael, and then it went to who's the warrior, and then it went to Melchizedek, who's the philosopher, and then it went to Metatron, who is the architect. And then when I got done that, they said, all right, now you know the frequency of each of us, how different we are. So when we come to talk to you, you know who's coming and what we can do. So this is the kind of knowledge that we're all going to be moving into. It's very solid, and these are ancient forms and very wise. So.
You mentioned something early on about, you said this is not pareidolia. Closer? Sorry. This is not pareidolia, and you repeated that. That reminded me of a woman who says, I can always tell when a man is wearing a toupee. Well, how could you possibly know that? Because if you don't notice that a man is wearing a toupee, you'll miss it. Pareidolia is an illusion.
Right.
How do you know it's not pareidolia when pareidolia is an illusion?
Yes. Well, that's when you're grateful that you have an Air Force pilot for a son who keeps saying, are you sure it's not pareidolia? Because pareidolia is as you say, an illusion, and when you test it, it doesn't stand up to the test.
How can you test it?
How you test it, you do the way I was trained by the Melchizedek, the 3 M's, is you say, all right, and believe me, I've had to test it quite often because I'm doing breakthrough work, and with my team, it's like, I get really hot. I can do this. You know, I mastered this. You asked me to master this, and I mastered it. And then they come and they say, "Congratulations, Atala! You did a great job. You really got it." Pause. And here's a bigger playpen. So, you know, we keep expanding our consciousness as we learn. And you always, with me, I'm always testing. I'm from Missouri, you know.
How do you test it?
You test it because they say, I am, well, let's take Michael, all right? Michael said to me, I said, I don't know, are you real? I don't talk to angels, you know? I never talk to angels. He said, well, if I tell you what you're going to be doing next Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m., and it happens, will you believe I can see into the future and that I'm giving you information? And I said, okay. I said, I'll try that. And then he told me what I was going to be doing. And I said, you've lost already because I know what I'm doing next Thursday. I'm going to be at work. I am not going to be doing that. So next Thursday afternoon, there's a whole, everything moved around. And I was doing this thing over here. And all of a sudden, that Michael said I would be doing, all of a sudden Michael said, well. So then I said, all right, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. And they do it, you do it step by step by step. They had me draw a line, and it was like the Battle of the Alamo. Those who would fight to the death cross over, those who would live should fly. And they always said, all right, just cross over the line. If what we've told you is not true, you can step back over. I have never stepped back over because every time they expanded, I could see. When you're first starting, you have to have good guides. That's the first thing. And they have to prove to you that they are authentic. And once you have that, then you build on that. And then you always are confirming with the guide, is this right? With the tree forms, I'm working with the Deva, and I can tell this is a bear. What is the frequency that's coming? Because now I know what it's like because I've trained. But it's a step-by-step. It's like learning to be a great physicist. You're learning piece by piece.
Can you repeat? Can your team? Can your team repeat that, like predicting the future to you in the presence of a skeptic?
No, how the team works is on a need-to-know basis. So for many years as training, I did consultations, and people would bring me issues. That was my training. I don't do it anymore because I know how to do it now. But they would bring an issue, and then on a higher level, their team would be talking to me and tell me the answer to give to them, or my team, they call it doing lunch. They do lunch up there and they decide what was going to happen, they'd bring it down. But I am not a fortune teller. I am not someone who sees into the future. With my team, they explain to me some things are destined. And when it's destined, they can tell me what it's going to be. Some things you have free will and options, and they explained it's like a hand. And right here, you're at the crossroad for a path. Now, you have 5 options. And at the first, whichever one you choose out of free will, you could go in one of these directions. But as you choose this, if you choose this path, these wither and die and go away, and then you're committed to this path as it goes along. But other things, it may be your destiny, that your agreement before you came to Earth that you would commit to this and you would do this, and that they can see, and they can help you to get to. Do you understand that? Okay. Well, we could talk a little later on that one. Okay. Okay. Is there any further, do you have one further clarification you'd like that I could help you? You have that puzzled look.
I have this puzzled look in this situation very often, and it's the same puzzled thing. So in certain situations, your spirits can give you information that is not available to humans, and that can later be verified.
Right.
The question that I have again and again is, you undoubtedly know that there's many institutions who research this who have $1 million prizes for you to do that just once for them. Why aren't to just show that to them once? So go in front of skeptics, prove this, what you just said, and you're a millionaire, and you can do that a dozen times over. I'm always wondering, why aren't you a millionaire?
Because if I chose that gross a level of action, I wouldn't be connected to the universe anymore. The universe doesn't work value this grasping, money and all this sort of stuff. And it's just like a Dowsers. I was vice president of the Dowsers. No Dowsers have won the a lottery, dowsing it, because that is not for the highest good. I only work for the highest good or the one. Okay. And but Deepak Chopra, if you go on Gaia.com, he has they've actually attached wires to the brain and shown how his different parts of his brain shift when he moves into meditation. So all these things can happen, and if that happened to be your interest, I'm sure if you got approval from your particular team, you could work with that. It's not my interest, so.
When a tree is not doing well, is there a way to help it to gain back the healthy state?
Okay. That's like with the human being. There's energy work. There's the life force energy of the tree, and there's making use of the advances that humans have. So if a tree is not doing well, you can either call in the local, tree expert see if it's nutrition that it needs. It could be that the tree is in a bad area, and you can work with it energetically, or it could be that the tree's old and it's dying. There's not any one answer to that. It's just like human beings, and if somebody gets cancer, and then what do? Some people will go to a healer and it'll disappear. Some people will go to the surgeon and it'll disappear, and some people try everything and it doesn't disappear because it's their time to cross over. So same with trees.